Hey, thanks for joining me. I stopped in at my comic shop yesterday, and I was not expecting to see another issue of Skinbreaker there so soon. I don't know how I lost track of the release schedule, but this was the last thing I was expecting. But here it is, issue 7. Before we get into it, as you know, I've got my own books. I'm trying to make people aware in case people want copies of them. I did a Masters of the Universe fan comic, more kind of grown-up adult take, meaning it's not for kids. It's not high art. I'm not trying to pretend or make it seem like it's something that it's not. But I took the concept of the original 80s TV show and just made a continuing version of it that the kid in me would like to see now that I'm an adult. There are 3 volumes here. They're all graphic novel size. They're all thick books. These are issues 1 through 3. I have issues 4 through 6. I've got them available. If you're interested, hit me up. I've also got a sketchbook, black and white drawings that I did, all a bunch of female figures. Had a lot of fun putting that together. So if you're interested, let me know. I've got copies of these things, and we can find a way to get copies in your hands. But back to Skinbreaker. It started out pretty interesting, and of course the art's fantastic. But as I've talked on the last couple issues, it's like, where are we going? It's only an 8-issue thing, and we were 5 issues in, 6 issues in. Now we're on issue 7, and it's just kind of been the same thing over and over. This tribe arguing about who's going to be in charge, and then they run into the forest and fight these big giant monster things. And then they go back to the village and they argue about who's going to be in charge. And then they run into the forest and then fight these big monster things. Wash, rinse, repeat. So after this, there's only one more issue. I believe it's supposed to be a double-sized issue to wrap everything up. So I'm curious to see what it's going to look like. I've kind of made the argument that I feel like this story would read better as a single reading experience, like a big collected graphic novel kind of thing, because the monthly waiting to wait 30 days in between issues and not have anything changing, like the anticipation to see where something is going in the story, it's getting a little frustrating. But issue 7, is something different going to happen? Well, kind of. At this point, you better know what's going on in the story. It's a little hard to recap it, but basically, since issue 1, a young warrior had to take control of the tribe. He was the good, honorable leader. Once he got control, we did a 20-year time jump to where he's now an older man, and he has to give up leadership. But he had a rival that was fighting him every step of the way. And now that they're both old men, the rival of the hero of the story, the rival has a young son who's a big, brainless, kind of dumb, angry, mean son. And he fought the leader for control of the tribe, and he won. And the leader, instead of accepting quote-unquote honorable defeat and dying at the hands of the new leader in what looked like a cowardly act, he just ran off into the forest. And they're like, what a chicken shit. He's dishonorable. We hate him. He's gone. But in the last issue, we kind of saw that it is a dishonorable thing to the culture to have the old leader just run off, but he's setting aside his own honor in an attempt to show everyone that the new ways that he's trying to introduce to the tribe, meaning setting traps for these monsters rather than just being like it's being a brutal kind of confrontation between the warrior class fighting off the monsters just in a one-on-one, head-to-head confrontation. It's too costly in terms of lives lost. And so the old leader, the guy who took over at the beginning of issue 1 and then grew to be an old man, he's like, yeah, we can fight these things, but there's no sense in standing here and just fighting them. We could set traps. We could set alarm systems. We could preserve life if we just act smarter. And the culture, especially the leader, the son of the rival who's in charge now, he's absolutely against the idea of changing from the old traditions, and he won't. But in the last issue, is either the last issue or the one before, the old leader saved the life of the young leader of the clan now. And we've seen this young man, who, again, this is the son of the leader's rival, and he's the big, dumb, angry, brutish idiot who just won't see past his own kind of traditions and values and the overwhelming pressure he gets from his father. But his life was saved by the leader who's supposed to be a sworn enemy. This guy's been trying to kill him, but the other guy saved his life. And he actually stopped at the end of last issue and kind of was contemplating, as if to say or give the implication that maybe he's pondering things, and maybe he's actually stopping and thinking rather than just being a big dumb brute, which is where we pick up here. He comes out of the cave where he had a conversation with his father, and there are other characters coming down here who've been introduced. This is, I think, the wife and the son of the leader of the hero of the story. They stop and they see their leader, and they know that they're at odds because this is the family of the opposition. So they're going to take off and run. But the leader here, the son, he's like, he sees them turning to run away, and he's like, wait, come back. I want to talk. So this, for the first time in a couple of issues, there's some character moments where a guy's doing something kind of unexpected, especially this guy. He's just been portrayed as a big, dumb, brutish fool who just won't change. But he's actually stopped, and he's pondered, and he's wondering. And he knows that these two don't like him, and they turn to run. And he actually asks them to, he's like, wait, stop, I want to talk. So it's like he's actually thinking, like, maybe there's something else. Maybe there's something more going on inside his heart and soul, right? But before they have an opportunity to do anything, they turn and look and hear some screaming. We get this great double-page spread of the monsters that terrorize this village. I think they call them Silver Fangs. And it's a bunch of them. I mean, let's see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 or 10, maybe. And we've only ever seen these in like 1 or 2 before. But to see this many, and then there's this big kind of like mega horned version right here, kind of like, is this like a leader? You know, like the alpha wolf, so to speak. Either way, one of these monsters is a god-awful, horrible thing. And now there's like potentially like 10 of them just attacking the village. There's men, there's women, there's children, there's the elderly. This is horrible. And the leader of the tribe, the old man, the good guy of the story, the hero, he's been advocating for years, like, we need to set up alarm systems, we need to set up traps to avoid this exact fucking situation. And here it is, it's just happened. If you've been reading the story, this is like horrible. This is bad. So the leader, even though he's the son of the rival, even though he's been, like I keep saying, just a mindless brute and an angry kind of jerk off, he jumps into battle to save lives. Like, he's trying to save the lives of his people. He's telling everyone, flee to the caves, seek cover. And then he gets his warriors. It says, shard bearers, prepare for battle. And so he's got the weapon, the Skinbreaker weapon that we've been shown, that I always thought was going to have some kind of magical properties. In the first issue, that kind of led you to believe it kind of did, but it never has so far. But this is the weapon made of some kind of special material. We don't know what it is. We don't know what it's from. But if you have this, you're in charge. And so he charges towards the monsters. He gathers his warriors, and the warriors are saying, there are so many. They have never attacked us with such numbers. And the leader says, we must defend our people. We have power and strength. We can hold them back. We must. So again, this is a character moment that flies in the face of kind of the stereotypical, mustache twirling villain, just a big, angry, brutish thug that he's been kind of portrayed as. He's going to stand his ground, and he's going to fight these things. He's not going to send other people in there to fight for him. He's going to do it. The monsters attack, just ripping one of the people apart. And so the tribe members, they fight. And the leader, he's got his sword in the head of one of these monsters, and he's screaming. He's like, no, we are failing. Like, they're fighting, but there's just too many. Like, what could they possibly do? More fighting. The leader guy, sorry, they all have names and they don't mention them very often, and I haven't committed them to memory. Paka. I think that's the name of one of these. That's the name of the guy, Paka. He's the leader of the group. He's just yelling to everybody, fight, we must fight harder. And they are fighting, but there's just too many monsters and there's just being overrun. There's blood and guts. There's the potential that women and children are being eaten alive here. Paka himself, he's like, it's not enough. We can't hold them back. They're trying, they're fighting. The monsters are just moving in on them. So many of them are dying. There's blood everywhere. Paka himself is screaming, no. Giant, monstrous version of it comes charging at him. And Paka's like, there are too many of them. We are not strong enough. We are failing our people. So again, I like seeing humanity come through in the stereotypical villain. There's nothing more boring than just a bad guy who's just like, they're evil just for the love of the game. And they're just bad because they're just bad. And there's no humanity in them anywhere. Like, any human being you run into that is like the complete opposite of anything you ever want to have anything to do with, if you were to really get to know anybody, everyone's got a little bit of humanity inside them, a heart and a soul. And that's what they're kind of getting at here. So I'm kind of like, finally, for once, I'm like, I mean, we're reaching the end of the story. So things have to start moving quickly. But I like that the bad guy's not just, they could have just had him like try to run, be a coward, and then get eaten, and he's gone. And then the hero has to come back and save the day. But no, he's there fighting as hard as he can and being the only one really effective, but it's not enough. And then they stop and they're like, Paka, look, what are they going to see? And I thought this was awesome. This is the leader. The guy who is the old man that was in charge for years and advocated for to set up traps, set up warning systems to try to make their lives easier. He's all about using his brains and his smarts and his cunning, not just brute strength. But he got chased off by Paka here, and he ended up falling into water, almost got eaten by a giant monster fish, swam into a cave, and he raised his head up after going underwater into an underwater cave, and he come up into this enclosed area inside the mountain, this cave that had this crystal material that looked exactly like the material that the Skinbreaker sword itself is made of. This weapon that they're holding here, it's just like in this different color. It's a specific color and a kind of a sharp material that is distinct. And the hero, he ended up in a cave, and that material was just everywhere, like in the walls, like a crystal lattice kind of structure. And it was everywhere. And that's the last we saw of him. Now he shows up with a giant double-bladed weapon made of the same material. That shit looks awesome. That shit looks exactly like the weapon of Tessai from Ninja Scroll. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. It's a pretty epic weapon. It looks very similar to that. That's the first thing I thought of. That's not a complaint.
どうした?さっさと逃げればよかったと後悔してる顔だな。
But there he is. And so Paka, he sees, he's like, holy shit, he lives. Everyone thought he was dead. This is the hero, the leader of the clan, his son, his wife, other people. They look down and they see the hero. He looks on. He hears shrieking of a monster. He stands there with his weapon, this newly forged weapon. The giant monster charges at him. He flexes. He prepares. It looks like he stabs the weapon into the ground to kind of brace it. This looks awesome. Love that shot. Great double page spread action. And like I said, it looks like he kind of jabbed it into the ground to kind of brace it, and then he holds it up and just slices the monster from neck to nuts, straight down the center of the creature, dropping it dead in a single blow. Just split it right down the middle. He's breathing heavily. He looks. Another monster comes for him. He goes to try to pull the weapon out of the ground, but it's actually stuck in the ground. It's kind of like embedded in there, and he can't pull it out, at least not in time. A look of shock like, holy shit, he's about to die. But just before the monster gets to him, a sword stabs the monster through the head, and there's Paka. He jumped up on top of the monster, stabbed it through the head, and saved the life of this man who he was just trying to kill just last 2 issues. The leader of the clan says, I thank you. And Paka says, I fear I have ignored your warnings at the peril of our people. For that, I'm sorry. So this is another thing. Like, I just like seeing someone who you think is such a horrible piece of shit see something and it changes their heart and soul. And I mean, I might be, it sound like I'm verbalizing it, like being a little bit dramatic about it. There is a little bit of like, I'm just looking for anything to grab onto, to have an emotional core to the story. You know, some comics you can read and it's just flashy art and it's soulless and it's mindless and you love it because it's flashy and mindless and there's blood and guts and sword and tits. But the shit that sticks with me is when there's a human, interesting connection moment in the story that makes you go, it's not just flashy, it's interesting. And the story has me grasped. And this is a story that kind of started feeling like it was drifting nowhere. And suddenly there's a moment where I'm like, there's something to connect to the story that I really like. Like, I thought the connection of the story, if you look back in issue 1, the hero here, like, there was a ritual all the kids have to go to, like have the sunlight cast upon their skin to have it change into this form where they can actually walk into the sun. And his child couldn't do it. He's not strong. So I thought that they were going to kind of lean into that element of he has a son that's not strong, but he's smart. But the son has been essentially almost non-existent in the story. So I was kind of frustrated at this element. I thought that they were going to have a big driving part of the narrative, and it's not there. But this guy, this is the son of his rival, and after all this time, he finally stops and has a moment of clarity, right? What alcoholics refer to as a moment of clarity. He's like basically saying, you're right. Everything you've been saying, you were correct. So he looks at this new weapon that the leader has brought with him. He says, the Skinbreaker, you have restored it? And so he says, no, I've discovered its source and made a new version in its former glory before the shattering. And Paka looks at it. He's like, it is a glorious weapon to be sure. So he's looking at this amazing weapon that was forged. He's like, holy shit, because the Skinbreaker weapon itself is like the weapon of the leader. But he's like, this new one you've got is fucking amazing. It's glorious. And so the leader, in a bit of like honesty and also kind of diplomacy, to seal the bond between these two in this moment, he says, glorious, yes, but heavy. I can barely lift it. And Paka says, perhaps our people are better off with 2 chieftains. And he hands over the original Skinbreaker sword from the story, the one that the leaders have always had. It's smaller, it's lighter. He hands the weapon over as if to say, okay, I've been wrong. I've been all about tradition, but you've got this bigger weapon and you can't lift it. But here, you have the one that you can hold. And then the younger, stronger man takes a hold of this big, giant new weapon. And then they stand there, former, like, bitter rivals, complete enemies, standing here, holding the weapons. The old leader saying, I fear it will take more than 2 chieftains to win this battle. And Paka says, then we will fight as more. So they're like, okay, they're having a moment of like, okay, maybe we figured out a way to solve this. We could work together. You know, there's just, like I said, I felt like there was a little bit of diplomacy on the part of the leader to hand over this new weapon that he's just so enamored with. He's like, yeah, it's epic. Here you go. And he gives back. You know, you give a little, you get a little. And so now he's got the weapon back of the leadership. He's got the new one. They're ready to go. They look at the monsters, and all the monsters are staring at them, and so they just start attacking, just slicing creatures apart. The leader says, look out, to Paka as he slices off the arms of one of the monsters coming at him. And then Paka stabs back to one of the monsters that was going to get the leader. He says, sound advice, you too should heed. They're standing amidst the body of dead creatures, and then they look at what looks to be like the alpha creature of these silver fang monsters. It's sitting there, it's grunting, it's got smaller ones tucked in and around its legs. Paka says, they are no match for two chieftains. They cower behind their master. And the leader says, no, they fortify their strength behind it. We must draw them out again. Only by dividing them can we hope to defeat them. So Paka's seeing, but he's not seeing correctly. And then the old age and wisdom and experience says, no, that's not what's going on. This is what's going on. We can't beat these things through raw strength. We have to outthink them. So Paka says, divide, yes, shard bearers, follow me to glory. So the rest of the warriors come charging, and led by Paka, who says, get its attention, see if we can lead it away from the camp. So they all start attacking this newer kind of alpha creature, stabbing into it, while the old leader watches. And then he talks to I believe it's his wife and his child, Imam and Dala. We must draw out the others. I have an idea, Father. Go to the waterway. That's his son. The kid who I thought would have more of a role in the story. But the kid's like, I have an idea, Father. Go to the waterway. So they go to the waterway, this little kind of little elevated bridge thing to kind of make water flow that they can bring to the village. The monster is chasing the kid. The kid jumps over the bridge onto the waterway, so the monster's right there. Paka himself is looking on. He's just watching. He's watching the father and son fight together. He slices the creature open as the kid gets away. Paka is watching. He continues, Paka, killing more of these creatures, and he stops, and the big alpha creature starts screaming and screeching really loud, and the leader looks on. Paka says, onward, hold nothing back. So the tribe keeps attacking, and the alpha creature keeps screeching really loud, and the leader of the tribe, he looks, and he's like, she mourns? Like, he sees that this creature that's the leader of all these things, he sees that it's sad that its own creatures, its own family is being killed, and he notices this. He says it mourns. So it adds another layer of interest to the story where the creatures have potential feelings, maybe. It seems to be the implication. The leader guy, he heads forward, he charges, he says, Paka, behind you. Paka is knocked over. He loses his weapon. The giant creature keeps attacking. Paka is on the ground. You see the shadow of the claws of the creature slowly creeping towards him, as if to imply this could potentially be the last moments he's alive on this planet. And that's where the issue ends. And next issue, it says here, the final two issues have really over-delivered on the action and incitement you've come to expect. But the next issue is like a double-sized issue to conclude the story. So, and that's it. So again, it's not very dense, as we've always kind of said and known since this thing started. It's mostly art-driven, and it's dragged on a little bit more than it needs to, but I like that things are finally moving forward, because it has to, just by sheer nature of the fact that the story's coming to the end. But, ending with that moment of the leader discovering that maybe the creatures think or feel potentially, and Paka might lose his life. That's going to be an interesting moment to have this guy, if that's the case, kind of come around and see the error of his ways to just die in this moment. I don't know. I'm kind of curious as to what will actually happen with this character. And will the leader make it in time to save him? Will the leader sacrifice his life to save the life of Paka? Who's to say? Who's to know? We'll have to wait until the final issue of Skinbreaker comes out. So, as always, artistically, I'm just loving it. Story-wise, it's been kind of frustrating. But it is what it is. I still kind of think that it would be better if it was read as a single reading experience. rather than the monthly thing. Just because, I mean, I'm not trying to say like the monthly grind of waiting in between for issues is a bad idea. It's just that it's sitting around and waiting for something where there's not much happening is a little frustrating. But it's, you know, who am I to complain? It's pretty dang entertaining. You know, the story was dragging, but here we are, things are happening, and I'm excited to see how it wraps up, and then to kind of go back and read them all through again as a single reading experience. I'm kind of excited to kind of see what that looks like. So I don't know, Skinbreaker #7. It's a heck of an achievement artistically. It's something new. That's what I like about it. It may not be blowing everyone's hair back in terms of the narrative because it's just this tribe in a forest fighting monsters, but there's something to be said for the fact that it's just something new. It's something, a brand new property, and there's no understanding or expectation of what's going to happen because this is all brand new. We don't know where this is going and what to expect, and I'm excited to see what the next issue holds. So here we are, Skinbreaker #7. So that's all I've got for this one for now. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time.